Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 151. We're going to talk about a ranch tonight, but it's not Zorro Ranch. We're going to talk about a ranch out in Carbondale, Colorado, that is owned by Les Wexner. And this ranch is in the middle of a court battle with a neighbor over water rights. So we're going to jump into this article and see what the King of Columbus is up to in Colorado. This article was written in the Aspen Times, and the author is Thomas Phippen. Headline: Carbondale family embroiled in water lawsuit with Les Wexner's ranch. And it's a guess, but I'm willing to say that this family that owns the other ranch they've probably been there for generations. They've probably had this parcel of land forever, and Wexner probably has shown up in the last few years, and all of a sudden the water's his, the roads are his, everything's his. Don't you know he's the King of Columbus? Don't you know he does what he wants? And this family that's got themselves in a little bit of a legal scrum with Wexner, I hope that they're ready to go all the way to the end, because Wexner's not the kind of guy to, shrug something like this off a slight. He's used to getting his way. He's used to being able to exert his power over people and make things happen in a way that pleases him. And I don't know if that's going to happen in this case. Again, I haven't read the article yet, but most of these ranchers and people who have owned this land in places like Colorado aren't the easiest people to intimidate, especially when you have some oligarch show up from, a New York business, big time Columbus, King of Columbus kind of guy shows up in one of these little ranching towns. I find it hard to believe that these cowboys are going to let them push them around. And that's what it looks like here. It looks like Wexner was attempting to do that, and it ended up in a lawsuit because this family was like, you know what, we're not going to deal with this nonsense. We're not going to let you bully us, and you're not having our water. A Carbondale ranch owner avoided a contempt of court charge Monday in an increasingly acrimonious water rights dispute with a ranch owned by the Les Wexner family. And good for them. Good for them. Why should they bow to Les Wexner? Why should they bow to this man who just shows up, throws his billions around, buys huge parcels of land, and then thinks he's going to tell the residents who have been there for generations and for at least decades what they should do and who owns the water and who has rights to the water? Yeah, okay, that's going to work out. Cassie Cerise owns land bordering with the downstream from the Beretta LLC, controlled by the Wexner family, about 2.5 miles north of Highway 82 on Crystal Springs Road. I'm not familiar with the area, so that means nothing to me, but from the pictures I'm looking at, well, it looks like, what you would expect. A big, large parcel of land, a white fence around it, a little dirt road that goes up to, I'm guessing, buildings. You don't see any buildings or any sort of facilities in the picture, but my guess would be that, it's the typical kind of parcel of ranch land, and they're situated probably on a certain amount of acreage each, and there's an issue between the two over the water here. So Wexner, I'm sure, is used to flexing like usual and getting what he wants. But in this case, this lady, Cassie Cerise, and her family, they're standing up to him, and it's ending up in court. The Wexners own around 6,000 acres on the base of Mount Sopris, according to reports from the Aspen Times, as well as 30 acres on Red Mountain near Aspen. Wexner stepped down from L Brands, the company he founded as the Limited Incorporated, in February. In the past year, Wexner has been criticized for his financial backing of Jeffrey Epstein and for the allegedly hostile work environment of subsidiary company Victoria's Secret. The alleged hostile work environment? Yeah, no, I don't think it's alleged at this point, okay? It was a hostile work environment. The environment that the girls at Victoria's Secret were forced to work in was just reprehensible, and it started at the top. We know that Wexner is not this innocent, doddering old man, or, this guy that was born yesteryear and doesn't have any idea or a grasp on what's going on. No, Absolutely not. He knows exactly what's going on. He knew what Epstein was. He knew who Epstein was. And he knew exactly what sort of monster he was giving the keys to the kingdom to. Judge Berkeley Boyd noted individuals on both sides of the lawsuit have used the pejorative hand sign known as the bird. Okay, so obviously they're flipping each other off. So I guess this is how rich people, conduct themselves. You have one person who's lived on the ranch for quite some time on a parcel of land, and then Wexner shows up with his posse, and they start flipping people off, and they start going crazy, I guess. Cerise claims in testimony Monday that she and her family has been abused and harassed by Beretta employees and security guards hired to watch the road. Now, I know I was just joking around a second ago about the bird, but this is sort of significant considering when you put it into context of Maria Farmer's story and how Wexner had a private security army basically on his property that wouldn't let anyone in, out, etc., etc. Well, you start to look at this and maybe in a different light. I know that if I didn't know anything else about Wexner, I would look at this and say, oh yeah, typical disagreement between neighbors who own ranches, nothing to see here, folks. But when you look at the big picture with Wexner, I just think it adds a little context and a little more meat to the bone, and it just adds more credibility as if she needed it, which she did not. Right? Maria Farmer's story and Annie Farmer's story is as credible as they come, and I've said it numerous times. If they would have listened to what she had to say, none of this would have occurred. But you see here with the security guards and how they're harassing, the family according to the neighbor. Well, you see how it parallels the security force in New Albany and the way they conducted themselves there as well. The contempt accusation alleges that Cerise broke a June 4, 2019 order from Boyd, which set speed restrictions for Cerise driving on Beretta Ranch property. That's weird. Why would they be driving on Beretta Ranch property? Unless, of course, it's one of those like shared roads. I'm not too familiar with, like I said, the area. I've never been to that area of the country, but I'm guessing it's a shared road. That's the only thing that makes sense. The court stepped in after allegations that people associated with Beretta had been forced to jump off roadways to avoid being struck by cars, and a temporary protection order against Cerise's husband that has since expired. Boyd's order set a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit and a 5-mile-per-hour limit if near Beretta representatives. What is this, a school zone? Are we going to have crossing guards out there so Wexner's employees can get across the dirt road, the unmaintained dirt road safely? What an absolute joke. This is what rich people do, folks. This is what they spend their time on. All right, while the rest of us are worried about real life situations, while the rest of us are worried about keeping the lights on, or feeding our kids, or feeding ourselves, buying medical care, whatever it may be, these people are arguing about someone doing 20 miles per hour on a non-county maintained road, and they're so lost when it comes to the real world and real world problems that they think that this is such an issue that it has to go to court. Normal people could sit down and work this out. All right, hey, look, man, maybe you're going a little too fast on that road. You think maybe you could slow down a little bit? Yeah, you know what? I think I could slow down a little bit. Do you think that you could have your security guards not, follow me and spy on me and, stare us down every time we drive through, whatever it may be? Give and take a little bit. But no. Let's accelerate it, and we're going to go to court, and we're going to make a big thing about it, and don't you know that I'm Les Wexner? Boyd named certain routes as the only places Cerise would be able to drive on Beretta property, but did not expressly include the road Cerise uses to access her cabin on the property. Cerise testified Monday that after reading the order, she realized under this order I couldn't go home that night. Well, that makes sense, right? Of course, the Wexner is going to have the more favorable order. Of course, the order is going to favor the Wexner property. I mean, after everything we've seen thus far, would we be shocked about anything else here? I'm just shocked. What I am shocked about, though, is that the neighbors are standing up to Wexner. Most people would find out who Wexner is, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's not even worth it. We're just gonna do whatever we have to do to make life easy on us." But no, these people, they're saying, you know what? Screw you. We've lived here forever. We have a cabin here. This is our property. What are you talking about? Attorneys for both parties requested an amendment, but disagreed about what the order meant. To Cerise, it meant the speed restrictions didn't apply to the road leading to her cabin, for which she has deeded easement. Beretta LLC's attorney Kevin Patrick argued that the order meant speed restrictions and rules of the road applied to all Beretta property. After a 5-hour hearing Monday, Boyd decided the rule was unclear. I would have to conclude that the order is ambiguous as to these deeded easements, Boyd said. That would make it inappropriate to impose a criminal-like consequence for potentially violating this order. Folks, do you realize how ridiculous this is? They're talking about criminal-like consequences for somebody driving a little bit fast on a non-county maintained road. Yeah, all right, we definitely have our finger on the pulse in Aspen. But disregarding the rules of the road is just one of many instances of alleged abuse by Cerise, who in turn has leveled plenty of complaints against people associated with Beretta. We have been surveilled basically constantly since Beretta took over the property, Cerise testified Monday. That does not shock me. That's typical Wexner security MO. That's how they operate. They definitely try and do that because then they can intimidate you. The Beretta property houses and trains horses used on the Wexner's other ranch near Carbondale during summer visits, according to trainer Susan Off. She testified Monday that there have been numerous incidents of unsafe driving on the road and Cerise's use over the Beretta ranch. After Boyd's order, Cerise said she was frequently followed or watched by security guards while driving over the road easement. Again, Maria Farmer's story said the same thing about the security guards, how they were basically his own private militia, and we see that here as well. They're not going to make life easy for this family. They're not going to make life easy for Cerise, especially if it's if it's something that's already in court and it's causing Wexner some agita. Well, there's no way that they're going to make her life easy. Cerise is not the only person related to this. Cerise is not the only person related to the case to face criminal accusations and fallout from the lawsuit. Scott Haycock, a former irrigator for Beretta, is now accused of felony perjury for an affidavit seeking a permanent protection order against Cerise's husband, Tim Fenton, in May 2019. So Scott Haycock, an employee of Wexner, is accused of felony perjury after he gave an affidavit that was a lie against Cerise's husband. Haycock's affidavit alleges Fenton came within inches of my face, screaming and threatening me with harm if he touched the shared splitter box on the Beretta property. In courtroom testimony May 23rd, Haycock said Fenton never threatened to touch him and revealed that he did not draft the affidavit. Beretta attorney Patrick did, according to the perjury summons. Every single person that works with Wexner seems to be a scuzzball, seems to be the type of person that's willing to bend the law, be the type of person that's willing to look the other way. And you see it with his lawyer here. Haycock said Fenton never threatened him to touch him, and he revealed he didn't draft the affidavit, but the attorney who was working for Beretta, aka Wexner, Patrick, did. Haycock appeared to recant in a May 31st hearing when he said Fenton was on the other side of a fence and not inches away. A tape of the incident heard Fenton repeating, "Don't steal my effing water," and Haycock responding, "I didn't steal your effing water." Cerise's attorney Tom Silverman said Monday, "Look, I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, really? Really? This is what the elite do when they're not involved in trafficking rings, I guess, folks. They go and argue with their neighbors over water." Boyd said his order was intended to keep everyone involved safe and to encourage the neighbors to coexist. Yeah, I think they should have a kumbaya. Maybe they should have, just a nice big luau, roast themselves a pig, and get to know one another. Because everybody wants to associate with somebody like Wexner. That clearly isn't happening, Boyd said, and he had criticism for both parties. Cerise's narrow definition of the boundaries of the order and Beretta's hiring of security to watch a road that only Cerise and her family uses does not show neighbors trying to get along, Boyd said. Nobody's going to be happy if you don't find a way to get along, he added. And talk about obvious statements of the evening. Right? You're grown adults here, folks. We're talking about a billionaire, and I'm sure the Cerise family has a couple of shekels of their own. They got themselves a ranch right here next to Aspen, Colorado. Big money there. Definitely big money there. So I would guess they're both rich, and here they are having this argument. They have to drag it out into court. It has to become a whole thing because they can't sit down over, a cold lemonade or a beer or whatever it may be and just hash it out like some grown-ass adults. It has to be accelerated to this level, and it has to be this. And it's just typical for Wexner. It doesn't shock me. Wexner believes that anything he brings to the courts is going to bounce in his favor, and why wouldn't it? With all the money he's spread around and all of the quote-unquote good favor he has garnered throughout his career of donating and hooking people up with money and power and favor, why wouldn't he want to take it to the courts and see how it goes there for him? At the end of the day, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to have to pay out a few bucks, maybe not touch their water. So what does he do? He builds his own underground aquifer or something. That's what happens when you're a billionaire. This all comes down to ego. And the only reason I'm even discussing this really, A, because it's Wexner and it just shows again how much of a moron he is, but B, because of the security aspect. It ties into what Maria Farmer talked about, and I think it's significant that we bring it up again and we add it to the catalog. That way, it's on record here, and going forward, we know that, again, he was using security, using militia, and I bet if we look up this Beretta company and we do some more research into it, we'll find some more shady players, because it seems that Wexner has nothing but shadiness around him. All right, folks, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you're not following me on Twitter yet, you should probably do that as well. BOBBY_CAPUCCI. I've posted some pictures from my trip to Santa Fe from last week on there, and I've been posting some different angles of the Zorro Ranch and how desolate it was. So you might want to jump on there and check those out. And as for me, well, I will be back tomorrow with our usual, plus segment 2 from the Santa Fe trip. And segment 2 will go all the way into my adventure down to Zorro Ranch, and we'll talk about my trip to the Santa Fe Institute. So look for that tomorrow night sometime. Also, if you would like to help support the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, folks, until tomorrow.